My first overall play is going to be Garrett Cole under 40.5 fantasy points, and I'm going to tell you why in just a second. And my second overall play is going to be Acuna under 11.5 hitter fantasy score. And I get it, you guys don't like unders, but let's talk about why this is going to be a profitable 5 flex slip. I'm going to build out 3 more plays here throughout the video and explain my context behind every single pick. Now, we know that blindly picking players, the average casual sports bettor usually hits their props about at a 50% rate. That goes for each individual leg. And since the average sports bettor is hitting at a 50% rate, that explains why he's a long-term loser. I'm going to show you why. Every single slip that you choose on PrizePicks has some added juice into the slip. The reason is because PrizePicks has to make money. If they are only offering props at plus 100 odds, meaning that you get, you put in $10 and you get $20 back. And again, that's the same thing as offering no vig. You're essentially offering no additional juice on each one of these props. Then PrizePicks would be close to break even long term. And in order for them to make money, they have to charge some sort of tax or some sort of juice onto all their props. You think about walking into a restaurant and you get your bill and it says $50. Well, guess what? You're not paying $50 for that food. You still have to pay taxes. You still have to pay a tip for your waiter. And by the end of the trip, you're walking out spending between $60 to $70, right? That same kind of concept applies for sports books. They're essentially charging you a tip that they get in return for even being able to take these props. Now, what a lot of casual sports bettors don't know is what that exact tip amount is built into each one of these slip sizes. So payouts obviously change. This is a fixed payout platform, whether you hit the over or under for these specific projections. As you can see, the 3-pick flex or 3-pick power play never changes its payouts, right? So it's always going to be 5 times. You add in another leg, and it never changes for a 4 slip. It's always going to pay out 10 times for the powers, right? And then you add in one additional one, and for a 5-man flex, the payouts never change, whether you hit the over or under for any specific player, right? 5 correct 10 times, 4 correct 2 times, and 0.4, as you can see, never changes the payout. That is completely different from a sports book because the sports book odds are dynamic, right? They change based on injury news, all that good stuff. And theoretically, behind all this hidden juice here, the projections change for PrizePicks. So even though on the surface it doesn't look like they're acting like a sports book, behind the scenes they really are because they're changing the projections, right? Because on sports books, they're changing the projections and the juice. Well, if the juice is always fixed on PrizePicks, then changing the projection one way or another to a certain point is acting in the same way. So what we have to do as sharp sports bettors is learn how to beat the sports books, what the best optimal slip type is, and then choose those slip types with the correct picks to remain profitable in the long run. Because again, behind the hidden juice, you have to beat it a certain percentage, a chance per leg to remain profitable in the long run. So let's go ahead and take a look here. This is the advanced slip calculator that I have on my Excel sheet, right? So we take the EV for each outcome. You get 0 out of 2, 1 out of 2, you get a 48% chance based on the projected win percentage of each one of your legs. So let's say that you're hitting at a 57.75% rate. Your percent chance to get 0 out of 2 is going to be 17.5. To get 1 out of 2, it's going to be 48.8. And then to get 2 out of 2, 33.35. In order to beat PrizePicks long-term for a 2-man slip, you have to win each one of your legs an average rate of 33.3%. And let's hypothetically say I change this to 50%, right? You're only going to hit 2 out of 2 25% of the time. In order to remain profitable, you have to hit it at a 33.33%. So as you can see, your negative EV, your ROI is going to be negative long-term. But if you're hitting a 2-man power at a 57.7% rate of the time per leg, you're going to break even, just break even here, 33.35%, and your ROI is slightly positive. Now, why this is significant is because this 57.75%, is only for a 2-man power. If we were to change the slip type, switching over to a 5-man flex, if we change this to a 50% chance, obviously you're going to remain negative in the long term, the average bettor is. But if you increase this to 57.75, then you're going to remain profitable, right? 2-man power, you have to remain, in order to remain profitable, you have to hit an average 57.75% rate. But if you decrease this down to 55%, you're still positive, right? So your leash is a little bit longer. You're allowed to have a little bit more risk here on a 5-man slip versus a 2-man power. So only because I know the exact break-even percentage per leg, I'm going to go ahead and put in the 54.26%. Now, as you can see here, the this is a lower rate, a lower percent hit rate than a 2-man power. So it makes mathematical sense to prioritize 5-man flexes as long as you have 5+ EV plays. And what plus EV plays are, let's now switch over to my favorite tool to use. The whole point of this channel is to look and identify at the market and identify plus EV plays. Let's talk about what that means, okay? So if we take a look here, I know this isn't baseball, but this guy, Isaac, I don't know these UFC players. I don't have to know these UFC players. Versus Francis Marshall, his round count is set to 2 on PrizePicks. So if we head over back to the PrizePicks tab and we look at MMA and we search Francis Marshall, and since each round is 5 minutes long, this is 2 rounds. As you can see when we compare back to the PrizePicks optimizer, his total round amount is set to 2 on PrizePicks. However, on sportsbooks, right now, BetOnline, I know this is very early in the week, but that's generally when these lines are released, set to 2.5 at plus 116, slight juice here on the under. Regardless, you're giving 2.5 minutes here leeway by the sportsbook setting its line to 2.5. So it makes mathematical sense to hit the over on PrizePicks at 2. So again, we're taking the over here for fight time, Francis Marshall, by just comparing sportsbooks lines. Because guess what? Even though this is a close to opening line, the sports books have already run all the projections, millions and millions of dollars poured into these models, these projections. There's a large enough discrepancy here to make mathematical sense to hit the over on PrizePicks at 2, even though, again, not total rounds, it counts in minutes, but it's the exact same prop here, right? So let's kind of backtrack here and talk about our first 2 plays here with Garrett Cole and Acuna. Anyway, that was the reason why I hit the over on Francis Marshall, over 10 minutes fight time. Garrett Cole, let's talk about his fantasy score. So what we have here on dgfantasy.com is we have the raw projected outcome of these fantasy scores based on the near even lines on the sports books. Let's talk that through. Let's say that Garrett Cole's strikeout amount set to 7.5. That sounds realistic, right? And it had equal juice on the over and under. We'd be setting that prop at a 50% chance to hit the over or under at 7.5, right? But we know that fantasy scores on PrizePicks are set to multipliers. So let's actually take a look at Garrett Cole. Well, let's take a look at the scoring chart first. His fantasy score is projected based on his wins, or based on the win in that game that he gets. He gets an additional 6 points. Earned runs allowed, -3. Quality start, +4. Strikeouts, 3. So again, what we would do is if, theoretically, we have this near even line set to 7.5, all we would do is multiply 7.5 times 3, and that would be his projected strikeout fantasy score because, again, near even line set to 7.5 times 3, pretty straightforward, right? And the amount of outs that he's projected to get, amount of outs are based on the projected innings that he's going through. So let's say he's only projected to go 5 innings. So we would take however many outs are in an inning, which is 3 times 5, and that's 15. 15 plus 22.5. And that would be the fantasy score that we get for Garrett Cole based on the sportsbooks projections that we're getting for each one of those player props. And then we're multiplying them together. It's actually pretty funny because I get exactly 37.5 in this example. I didn't actually look. But anyway, this is all automated on DG Fantasy, and we're getting a player prop fantasy score amount and comparing it directly to PrizePicks. 40.5, 37.3 is what he should be projected to hit in terms of fantasy score based on DraftKings and Caesars. Right now, those are the only 2 projection sources that we have for every single player prop included in that fantasy score projection, right? So we are using that knowledge and we're saying, hey, based on the sportsbooks lines, he should be closer to 37.3, but on PrizePicks, he's at the 40.5. So guess what? Based on the hit rate that we're showing, based on the sports books, he's going to hit the under at 56.36% of the time over the long term. So again, thinking back to our slip type, we have to beat this 5 flex slip 54.26% of the time on each individual leg. If we're saying that based on the sports books, based on the most accurate projections in the entire world, he's projected to hit this under at 40.5, 56.36% of the time. This is a plus EV play. This is a plus EV long-term pitcher fantasy score at Garrett Cole 40.5. It's too high, right? It should be 3 points lower. Anyway, that's why we're hitting the under on Garrett Cole 40.5 fantasy score. Right now, Ronald Acuna set to 11.5. The same exact things that we just talked about. Right now, his projection, if we take a look here, should be set to 9.9 on DraftKings. Well, he's set to 11.5 here on PrizePicks. And based on the sportsbooks lines, he's going to hit the under 56.28% of the time over the long term. Hopefully this time, right? He's going to hit the under. So we're setting the under to 11.5 here. Talked about the UFC play over 10, and that is how we calculate these fantasy scores and how we identify them as being plus EV. Let's now talk about Aaron Judge. I don't know if you can put same pitcher and same hitter from the same team, but they're not correlated, right? So you should be able to. Aaron Judge, 7.5, we're hitting the over. Based on the sportsbooks lines, they are setting his projection to 8.9 on DraftKings. Looks like it's far too low here on PrizePicks. Who doesn't like overs? So yeah, we're taking the over here on Aaron Judge. That's a pretty sexy play. And then last but not least, we're actually going to be comparing, it looks like, let's actually head to the middling tool. So another tool that we have on DG Fantasy is where we identify discrepancies within the market. So for instance here, if we take a look here at Tony Gonsolin, we can see that his projection is set to 3.5. On parlay play, he's set to 4. It looks like across the market, they agree with the 3.5 projection. Juice is all over the place, so this is actually a better play on parlay play. Anyway, this is exactly how you use this tool. Also, if you haven't signed up for parlay play has a ton of value day in and day out, as you can see here. Use code DGF for 100% matchup to $100 on parlay play. But again, this is a really good website to use if you're looking and looking for different soft lines, and you're a line shopper and you're actually taking profitable sports betting seriously. Ranger Suarez, pitcher strikeout set to 4.5, but on Sports Battle, another great site, set to 4. So that looks like the better play would be on Sports Battle. Same thing here with Joey Wentz. Looks like the market agrees, except for Sports Battle. Sports Battle's falling behind the wheel here. Bido, however you pronounce his name, set to 3.5, 3. Going down the line here, I'm just going to cipher through some of these plays. And Spencer Strider actually doesn't look too bad. It actually looks like a majority of these MLB plays have shifted enough to make it not so appealing from a profit standpoint. And yeah, it looks like PrizePicks agrees generally with the market. So we're going to go default down here to Sigetsu, I think that's how you pronounce his name, an esports play. Right now, he's setting his maps 1 to 2 kills at 32.5, but on underdog, he's setting it at 34.5. So that 2 kill discrepancy is enough to move the needle to make this a profitable long-term play, because there's such a discrepancy within the market. Oh no, did he just start? Oh, it's in Valorant. I'm looking at the wrong sport. So on Valorant, again, the very similar sport to CSGO, we're hitting the over on Sugetsu, 32.5. And then on underdog, you're hitting the under at 34.5. If it hits that middle, then you're winning on both slips, right? So that's the mindset behind that. But anyway, my takeaway from this video is that if you're observing the market, if you're staying in front of the market, and you're able to take advantage of these discrepancies as you can identify by the DFS optimizer on dgfantasy.com, you will remain a profitable sports bettor and a long-term winner instead of a loser. So again, a lot of casuals will log on here, average hit rate of 50%. That is not the way to sports bet. This is how you do it.